So here's NVDA, right? And I've got selected this Friday. And so you can look down the call column here, right? And you see some short interest sitting up here at 144. And you also see a large amount of short call interest sitting here at the 138. And why that's significant, so this is known short interest. There's probably other short interest in here that we're not reflecting, but this is known short interest just based upon a proprietary classification methodology that we've developed. And what it does is it throws this 142 area or this 42,900 area that you see in the net OI, it throws it into a massively negative because you have the negative from the puts in addition to the negative from the calls, right? And that's why these sum out to where they are. Now, the implications there are really, really strong. And so let me do this. I'm going to go grab my chains here if I can get them. I'm going to go grab NVIDIA. And what I'm going to do here is what I want folks to appreciate is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to have a short. I'm going to sell a call at 138 in this structure. So I'm going to go over here, single. I'm going to go to 138 and I'm going to sell, analyze, sell, call. Okay, it looks like that. Do that. And I'm going to change the display to delta. Okay. So I want everyone to kind of look at this so that you can see what's happening, right? So the 138, right? So we're sitting, and that's the 137.86, okay? 138.40. Oh, okay, this was when I updated it. So we've gone above this. So that's what this line here is. We're at 138.51 real time. So a couple things are going to be happening here into Friday. And why this is important, and you can see right here where I've just taken the 138 strike. I've got just one contract, and this is simulation. This isn't. I'm not doing this, but this is a teaching moment. And I've got this selected to delta, right? So, and it's a call, right? So once price goes above your strike, you're in the money, right? And you start limiting in the direction of the whether you're long or short. In this particular case, we're short. So we're going to limit towards -1. So as we limit towards -1, that means, and these lines, these multicolored lines that you see right here, these are interim P&Ls. The blue line is what's called the terminal P&L. That's where you are at literally 359.59 Friday at expiry, at close. And that's the value, the delta value that you would have. And you can see that we've got gray, green, red. And for you folks who are color challenged, I apologize for that. But the directionality, just so you can see, this top one is gray, the middle one is green, and I'll refer to them like that. And the red one here, the lower one is red, with this one being blue, the one that I'm pointing to right now. Up here, you can see that the red one actually is the closest to expiry. The green one is kind of in the middle, and then the gray one is what we call the right now line. It's kind of where we're at. And so in context of where we are, we're collapsing in this direction. And this goes for all options, especially known short options. And this is why I'm bringing this up right now. And so the charm of this right now for NVIDIA is in a direction of going more and more negative, and that's because we're in the money. And that means our book is getting shorter and the dealer's book is getting longer for NVIDIA. or correlated asset. So the natural, as this line goes up, the natural dealer response for NVIDIA is going to have to sell, right? We're getting shorter, the dealer's getting longer because they're on the other side of the transaction. And because they're on the other side of the transaction, they're getting longer and longer and longer, so their natural response will be to sell, which will put downward pressure and move price back towards something. Well, let's take it to the other extreme. Let's say it sells and it sells off, and we go down here to 135. Completely realistic. Well, now we've just gone from an in-the-money status to an out-of-the-money status with respect to this contract, this short contract. And now, out of the money, right, because price is below the strike price, out of the money options decay. They decay to zero, independent if they're long or short. It doesn't matter. The direction matters, but they decay. So we're going from a negative delta, because these are negative deltas over here, towards zero. So if we're getting less negative, that is the same thing as getting more positive. So for a hedged position, the dealer is, if we're getting more positive, the dealer is getting more negative from a hedged position. And as a result, their response is to buy. They buy, and that puts upward force. Short contracts are the only contracts that I'm knowledgeable about that have a magnet effect. Anybody else out there who says that, these different levels are magnets, they don't understand the underlying mechanism. There's nothing about a long strike that makes it a magnet. It's all about a short strike, and it's that mechanism, that dealer response that I just talked about. So if somebody knows of something, educate me, but I'm going to tell you right now, NVIDIA is most likely going to hover. Let's go back to NVIDIA now. This is NVIDIA. NVIDIA is most likely, because of this dominant short interest that's sitting at the 138, is most likely going to be bound. It doesn't mean it can't go up to 139 or come down here to 137, but just due to the underlying structure of what we're seeing here, it most likely is going to pin very, very closely to 138 into tomorrow. So if you can pick up a fly, you might want to do that. You want to do something where you can, maybe perhaps participate in the fact that you have some knowledge about the structure and how things could potentially pin. It's worth looking at. Now, there are some mitigating things that there always is. None of this stuff is ever single contract clean, right? You've got a lot of calls up here. As the architect was just pointing out, Jensen's supposed to speak at the Consumer Electronics Show on Monday. It's creating a lot of activity, and that activity, for instance, could be adding deltas up here. You could be, in effect, if you buy 50 deltas on calls, you can start negating this. And we've seen this with other instruments where you start reducing this, and we won't know this until tomorrow. For today, 34,000 into the Friday expiry. When we get the updated numbers in the morning, this could be more negative, it could be more positive. Who knows, right? We just don't know. But there is a potential where the surrounding tails could potentially pull us away from this, right? What I was describing in this other figure right here is a single contract theoretical. This is how it works. The reality is this. You have to multiply it by the net OI that is there, and the influence of the gamma of the delta is all shown here. And you can see over here in the net delta, we've got this huge strike, but it's surrounded on top and bottom by positive deltas. The in the monies are getting stronger. That's pushing things up. The out of the money here is getting weaker. So we're tilting the board to move up, and we know that charm, you can see what the gamma distribution is into tomorrow. We can see that there's probably more charm, call dominated in gamma, likely the same thing for charm. We can go run net stat. In fact, I'll do that here while we're talking. Let me just go down to a channel. I'm going to go down to the net. Let's see. Netflix. I'm going to run $ net stat NFLX. And we'll see what that returns here in a second. that potentially could force us away from this, but it's better than a coin toss that we're going to be pinning right in this transition area. And for right now, by the way, into tomorrow, this is perceived as the low pressure area. So it's not a bad bet. In fact, I might do it just to demonstrate that, I'll eat my own kill here. Let's wait for Netflix to print its net stat here. Just give me a second. Here we go. Here it is. All right, let's talk about what we're seeing here. So we've got 9:15. Wow, that's way up there. What did I do wrong here? I'm in the wrong. Oh, NVDA. I did Netflix. I'm an idiot. And I'm recording this so you guys can say, yes, he's an idiot. Why didn't anybody stop me? Netstat, $, Netstat, NVDA. I saw 9:15 there. I'm like, what the heck is that? You gotta laugh at yourself, folks. If you don't laugh at yourself, you'll never get out alive. All right, so while that's printing again, let's go back and look at the chart. Where is the chart? It's right there. I gotta go page over to it. This thing here. All right, let's do this. Now, here we go. Okay. So this is interesting, right? This is telling us we've got some overhead charm due to decaying calls. That's out of the money. It's much, much stronger. So we're actually removing in charm, we're removing deltas faster. Let me just go over here. Not that one. Let's go over to, where is it? This one right here. That means that all of these call contracts, because we're not advancing, all these call contracts are decaying. Everything here that's green is telling us that it's a call-dominated strike, and it's all, since it's in the right-hand plane, which is right here, this is all right-hand plane stuff with a dominant at 143, it's all decaying, right? So that's oops, where's my chart? There we go. All right, so that's that. So we've got a lot of charm decay on the right-hand plane, and that's going to be an overhead resistance or pressure, right? So just in general, the right-hand plane is heavy. It's all dominated by decaying calls, which is not necessarily bad. And oh, by the way, this structure, when you have in the money call and out of the money call, you're call dominated. And you can look back at this and you can say, yep, looks pretty darn good to me, right? This is all call dominated up here. You can see there's just a few strikes where the out of the money calls, remember, out of the money calls are being dominated by in the money puts. It's only going to be in the gamma distribution that you see right here, that charm and Vanna and all that stuff really apply. Once you hit the zeros and up and the zeros down, you've already limited. All of these puts, and there are very few puts there, are limited to 1, right? Hence the small numbers that you see up here. This is notionalized to shares. And the same thing down here, you can see actually when you look here and you look over here, these all end in 0, 0, and they're all just multipliers of 100 of these values because we've already limited out in deltas down here, right? These all have a delta of 1 because they're deep in the money. These in the middle here are not deep in the money. These are in play. And so when you look at the structure in this gamma's area, which can be charm, it can be Vanna, they all kind of more or less fit into the same influence area. You can see we roll off very quickly in puts, and we are incredibly strong in the right-hand plane in terms of delta on the charm. So when we look here at, let me see if I can get back to that screen right here. When we look here, we've got overhead charm that is heavy and decaying, but we have a really good balanced structure between the left-hand plane deltas and the right-hand plane deltas. This is just a snapshot in time. This is telling us upward progress is going to be difficult. This is also telling us something here. It's telling us where that butterfly, if we put it on for tomorrow, may not work. And the reason is, as volatility comes out of NVIDIA, this is much, much larger than that. So what's the influence of that? When we put out of the money calls in, if we see a lot of out of the money calls in, so while I'm talking here, I'm going to run $vol_m NVDA, NVDA, make sure I don't do Netflix again. Effectively, what we are seeing is if puts are being closed, we're removing, and if volatility is coming down, not only are we removing the influence of the left-hand plane, which is where we have negative deltas being contributed to, but we're taking those puts out. So this number is artificially, it's made smaller as we close puts. This won't reflect intraday trades. This is a snapshot of existing OI at the beginning of the day. Same thing here. So this is why vol_m and vol_d become important. And when we run those for NVIDIA, we see that if we have a decrease in volatility across the market is good enough, then we are going to be pouring gasoline because people would be putting calls in. So what does that look like if we're putting calls in? Well, it looks like this. First of all, let's start with volume on NVIDIA. Calls are definitely outpacing puts in the centroid, in the vol_d centroid. Price is going up, puts are below calls. Most likely calls are going in. You don't know that from volume. You will not know that from volume. But price confirms the action. And we're definitely pushing higher. We're definitely seeing deltas go in. We're also most likely, because of vol_m, we're most likely seeing as we move away from the puts, remember these are out of the money puts. This is all the 0 DTE. This is what vol_m tells us is 0 DTE, or for tomorrow. It's pointing to the next expiry, Friday. We're likely closing, especially if we're transacting a lot down here, we're likely closing a lot of this, and that's what's forcing things up too. Now, unlike the SPX, which in the SPX we typically don't cross these levels, on Fridays it's all bets are off because people don't want to be assigned their in the money contracts, right? And they'll close all over. So this will get really noisy tomorrow. But this is telling me, for all intents and purposes, with this thing moving up, that we could potentially push much, much higher. It's pointing to right now, if market continues what they're doing, that we're going to break 141 into tomorrow. I would be surprised at that, but not, I wouldn't rule it out. 40 seems to be a more realistic level, just because of other things that we're seeing with Gamma, for instance. But don't rule out what's happening here. So we could just continue to move up with this within this channel into the end of the day today, and we'll just see what happens here. Does that change the thesis on getting a butterfly for tomorrow in here? No, I'm thinking about maybe a 5 wide on either side. Maybe adjust it up a little bit just to compensate here. So if we were to do something like that, let's just go build something like that real quick. Go grab fly, and let's just grab, say, a 139. I'm going to do a call, analyze buy. Let me move this up so we can see this. And I've got that short strike on there, so I'm going to take that out of there. Get out of the deltas. And let's go here. All right. And this gives us a little bit, and that's a balanced fly. And you can see the right now price right here at the 0 line, and we're bouncing around, and it's cheap as anything, right? We can do your risk on a fly. That's this is 1 wide. Let's do a little bit wider than that. Let's go down to, say, 136 and 143. Oh, 142. Make it balanced. So 100 risk, and you could potentially get 200 back. So this is a 2-to-1. You can see it right here, 206. I might be able to go a little larger, do a 3 and do a 6. Now, one thing that is always useful with our charts. Let's just go there. Get out of those. I don't need those anymore. You can see COI is sitting right here, and COI is 143. There is a high likelihood we're not going to push higher than COI. There's a number of reasons for that, but this is the greatest contributor to charm right now into Friday's close. This is the biggest strike that is sitting there that is working against us, right? So right now it's out of the money and decaying. If we cross it, that's a different animal, but for now it's the biggest headwind, and as we push up here, it's going to have an influence, or it's already having an influence. It's going to have a bigger influence. So as we look at this, so going back here, we know that that's at 143. So here's that 143. So the chances of going above this 143 are pretty slim right now. So if you wanted not to sell this, but you wanted to go out a little bit further, 45, it's really not probably going to give us the benefit I was looking for. Yeah, probably not going to give us the benefit. What I was doing is I was moving this up, knowing, of course, that transition inversion's right below 143. This is our risk then up to this inversion point, because this is where I would get out. And I was trying to effectively move this so I didn't have to, necessarily pay for it. I didn't really get the benefit that I was looking for here in this top strike, which is only $250, right? So I'm taking 150 risk, probably less. I'd get out around here most likely, but certainly the risk right here would be about 150 risk, and to make only 250. So going with a fly tomorrow that is not balanced, broken wing is probably not going to really pay out here. So I'm not too interested in that asymmetric risk. So this, if you were to do this, you would just get theta decay up. So if you bet NVIDIA into tomorrow is just going to roll up a little bit, and maybe you want to do the 140. I don't know, maybe even the 141. So this guarantees us a profit, but we definitely have to move up. I don't necessarily want to go that low, but I will try it. Yeah, 134, 135, maybe 136. Yeah, it's hard. This center point is really sensitive here, right? So you can just see what happened when I moved the 141 down to 140, and it dropped me. So it's basically saying if we finish at 141, it's a home run. As long as I finish above 138.26 into tomorrow, I'll break even. And if we move upward, just due to the anticipation of Jensen doing whatever he's doing, per contract pair, I could make $78 for, the system will say this is the risk. I would be out of it if the thesis started working against me long before that, right? So my risk is only going to be in this area, and it's going to be based upon what we see in this downside move, which I actually think could be 134, and that's this 130. Yeah, so I'm not inclined actually. Yeah, I'm not going to go the 134 route. That's too much risk for that gain. 300 to 400. Yeah, now I'm upside down, right? So I've got only 300 if I hit a home run, whereas I could move down fairly aggressively if we're not careful. So I think your best bet for playing an NVIDIA play right now with those known short strikes are slightly to the upside. Maybe even doing a condor type structure, and maybe, this isn't a bad structure, but just don't give it a leash on the downside, and certainly give it a leash on the upside. You could do, by this time tomorrow or so, you could be up. From now, you could be up 120 per contract, multi-leg there, right? So if you by contract structure, So if you put 5 of these on, depending what your risk tolerance is, 5 or 10 of these things on, you might be able to make some money if you think NVIDIA is going to go up into Monday's event. And that's a 136, 141, 143 broken wing. So something to look at. Not a recommendation. You guys are all self-directed, of course, but something that you could consider knowing the information that you have for NVIDIA. So let's talk about this structure, right? So we know there's considerable short interest here at 138. And we went through in that other talk about why if we go below 138, there's going to be pressure to go back up and pin towards 138. We also know that if we get above 138, that there's pressure to pull us back down to 138. But we also know there's a lot of calls going in. So that's going to just continue to asymmetrically drive price up and down. And you can see we're right very, very close to the overall structure here, right, that of break zero, where all these lines crosses the time invariant line. Doesn't matter what time is doing into expiry, that's your loss mechanism. And you can see anything below the 0 line that exists where I'm pointing is the break even. And right now we're lossy, right? So the price has come down a little bit from my entry point. It's back to 138.39 right now. But if we continue up, right, you can see how that could pan out. So the presumption here is that this is gonna work on our behalf. And oh, by the way, if we wanted to do something like, say, a 142, 140, 135, just as an example, and I wanted to add those in, I could actually do the exact same balance where I am now putting another 8 contracts in there. I'm not overwriting any of the previous contracts because it's a broken wing. I just slid it down 5, and you can see from theta decay will move up, and I could actually encompass, if I turn off my holding there and just look here at what I'm projecting, this is also not a bad place to be because it gives me a little bit of run room down to 137. I moved it down 1 strike, and it's given me that same, but I don't have the upside because I'm just the way that the skew is working and the way the value is working, right? But nevertheless, I mean, I could even go to, say, a 134, 139, oops, 139, and then a 141, and it looks kind of the same thing. And if I combine that with my holdings, now I'm going to melt up even more. So this initial entry into this does it need to be a definitive, oh my God, I'm one and done. So save some capital if you're going to get into multi-lots of multi-legs, because you can move the broken wing around to take advantage of what we knew. We just happened to get in on this structure, and I'm right at that level where it's at the break-even level. Let's see, we're at 138.05, right? So we're right at that short strike pin. If I wanted to, I could go ahead and add this structure to it, and then the net of them look like that. And what that does for me is it now allows me to start moving upward as theta decays between now and tomorrow. So I'm going to wait and see how far down we go in NVIDIA, and then that'll probably be my low side to put some theta burn into the equation. And then knowing that we're going to try to pin around 138 is the thesis, and knowing that once I fill my risk bucket and won't add anything more to it, meaning I can't really compensate without exceeding risk or some other limit that I have on myself, then it's just a matter of either taking some of these contracts off the table and playing with house money, or maybe there's some adjustments we can do a little bit later. I don't know right now. Remember, with a fly, you can take off the verticals. Remember, a fly is just a combination of verticals, right? A long vertical and a short vertical with a common strike in the middle. So we can actually break these apart and see if the combination of the fly or combination of taking certain things off can help us manage that too. That's why I love broken wing flies. Broken wings, I think, are one of the most versatile, especially the asymmetry that you get. You're able to add strikes and do structures like this that can help you. If your overall thesis, all you got to do is get the direction right in a broken wing. And we are on a very close margin, of course, at that 138 where we put this thing on. So putting on a 134, 139, 141 is not necessarily a bad thing to do. Let's see if we did a 142. That would give, actually, that doesn't look bad either. It just, you don't get any upside. You get marginal upside from the second entry right here, right? And once you get over, by the way, once you get over 141, you would want to take this thing off the table because you're no longer in a positive theta environment. You're actually going to start reducing. You can see what theta, this is the theta picture for this thing. Once they cross the right now line, which is the gray line, will start collapsing into the red line, and you start losing value as time goes on, and you don't want to do that. So that price right now in that combined structure is 141 to the high side. You would take it off the table there. So if I do end up doing this, I would take it off the table at 137.45, and I would take it off the table, let's see right here, at 141.85. Hopefully that's useful. So we just, over here, we see this short 144, right? And we know we're all called dom in NVIDIA. We also know from here that we see on the 0 DTE for NVIDIA, which is today, that we've got this short interest sitting here, or perceived short interest, whatever the system came up with at 144. So we've got two major short strikes. We already broke free of the 138, and now we're up here and above COI. So what's the implication of that in context, and why could we pin at that 144? So what I've done here is I've created just a simulation because now I'm out of NVIDIA, and the question is are we going to pin at 144? And market dynamics are such that the answer is probably yes. And the reason I say that in kind of hand wave here is that this is the delta. You can see I've got delta right here. And what happens when you are below a short strike of magnitude, and we know this thing's got some magnitude, is that because it's a short call, it has a negative delta that's associated with it. So delta, you can see here, is minus 100. And so this blue line is the terminal delta. That's where we would be at the end of the day. So if you're in the money, you get all the value. If you're out of the money, you get zero value, right? So 0 delta or 100 delta at the end of the day. But the interim are indicated by these lines here. And so what's happening here is I expect that we're going to try to pin around the 144 strike. And you can see we're really aggressively pushing up here at 143.78. So we're really pushing up now to this 144 area. We can go past it, and we'll talk about that here very shortly. But one of the things that I think is important here is that when you are below a short call, you're out of the money. And so the decay is in the direction of where this red line is. This red line is later in the day. So eventually we're going from the gray line to the green line to the red line, right? So we're decaying towards zero. This is the same thing if you're decaying a negative delta. That's the same thing as adding positive delta. So our book is getting longer, the dealer's book is getting shorter, and all things considered, it's going to push us upward. So we're going to get pushed into that 144. But what happens if we go above it? If we go above it, we're now in the money. And if you're above it, and now you got to go with the direction, is it long or short? In this particular case, it's short, and we're going to start limiting towards -1 or -100. Why that's important is now we're getting shorter in our book. We're adding negative deltas to our book, which means the dealer is getting longer. And if the dealer is getting longer, they start selling. And so now you get this pinning mechanism based upon where the last hedging level is and, effectively what the market dynamics are doing. Now, one thing to look for, you can see we're almost collapsing right on top of this 144. So this is being very, very aggressive in price up to this 144 area. So again, do we want to open up a fly around 144, do a 5 wide, do a 10 wide? If you are right at 144, you can get max credit for those shorts. That's not a bad play. If you think you're going to go higher, do a broken wing with an open on the right-hand side. If you think you're going to go down, do a broken wing with an open on the left side, so that you can take advantage. Personally, just given what we are seeing in the NetStat, or not NetStat, in the web app, and knowing that we've got this charm that's going to be created from COI here, I think the pressure is going to be upward today. And you can see what the distribution is here. Doesn't mean that it's going to break free and go higher. Market dynamics are really going to drive a lot of that. But I do think there is the potential to keep pushing up, so I would be inclined to put a broken wing in that is open on the higher strikes, and therefore guaranteed to have a little bit of gains there. But always be aware that we could pull back, and certainly pull back into this area. So just always be cognizant of it. And in fact, that was the same situation that we had yesterday, that we did pull back down to that 135 level, and that put our 138 thesis that we had right here under pressure. And I added another broken wing to compensate for that, which is a little more complicated to deal with. As you saw, I had to, the way TradeStation made me exit it was a little funky this morning. But in general, it worked out okay. So, so give that some thought, and happy to discuss as we go forward here. I'm probably going to close my NVDA position. And so what happened yesterday is that we were discussing NVIDIA, and the context is that we had a considerable amount of short interest here, which could become a magnet. And so we went ahead and entered some flies, and then it moved against us, and so we entered some offsetting broken wing. It was a broken wing fly that we got into, and then we added some offsetting broken wing. The idea behind this was that, hey, we're probably not going down from yesterday. I don't have yesterday's chart available here, but we're probably not going down a dramatic amount. But we took some heat, and I know I got a DM from a couple of you that, why was I doing this and why was I doing that? And that's fine. I appreciate that. It's hard to answer everybody's question, but you got to believe that you've got some support. So now here we are. We're at 141, and this is why we did the broken wing, right? So now we're up quite a bit, and this blue line. So this is the actual trade. So I'm in this trade. I've got, I don't know, between 8 and 16 contracts on here, and this is real time. And you can see that, we were flirting down in this area earlier, and it was lossy, right? And the ideal place to be would be where this is going to collapse up into, due to theta decay, up into the blue line, which is terminal P&L. Right now, we are at this level right here, and we're coming up on this crossing where all these interim P&Ls today. This is for the 0 DTE, right? So because this is expiring today, and you can see it's jumping all over because the options are jumping all over, but it's collapsing down. I've actually missed the opportune window to get out of this, but we're on the gray line right now. So I haven't missed it by a great amount. But in terms of execution, I need to get out of this thing. Why? Because theta decay is actually going to take money away. Now, I'm guaranteed a profit as long as we stay up here. If I just went to the end of the day, I'm going to make $1,000 on this, right? If I get out of it right now, I'm going to make about 1,300. So I'm just going to go ahead and do that right now. Let's close. I don't want to analyze. I just want to get out. It's not letting me close this. Why is it not letting me close it? All right, I got to get over to another screen. Let me do that first. I'm not going to show all my trades, so I'm going to pull that off here. And let's just go over to, oh, it's because I got it locked. That's fine. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, this is very odd, but that's fine. Just bear with me while I close out of this thing. Yeah, D, I'm currently closing my NVIDIA position here. Just to lock in the profits. Take the profits while you have them. It's, you know, it's a good for a one-day trade. It's a fairly good gain here. So for some reason TradeStation made me split it. All right, so I'm out. And let's see, what did it do? Okay. So I was able to get out, like I said, for pretty good gains here, which is a good spot to be. We had originally entered in a broken wing that was in fairly good strength when we entered it, and then it dropped in the overall price for NVIDIA, and then we added another broken wing on top of it. That's what I was showing earlier, and now I'm out of that and was able to clear a little over $1,000 on that. So that part worked out just beautifully, and hopefully you can use this information to you know, to manage where you think the trade could go. Now, part of this was that for Monday, for CES, Monday and Tuesday, CEO Jensen is due to talk, and there's probably some bullishness, and we're probably bound between this 138 and this 141 here. So moving upward and being bound is not out of the question. I think there's a lot that can, you know, be done in the context of that. So, you know, play it accordingly today as you see fit. You're in a nice, what I would say, very, very supportive for the 0DT, very supportive environment. If you want to try to do something here, I would watch Vol M and just look for the directionality on Vol M. And then Look to see where it makes sense to get out of the trade for a gain. Looking out at the 10th, kind of the same scenario. So you're in fairly good shape, and if you combine today and the 10th, still looks very good with this net OI up here being due to that call. So I would actually anticipate perhaps a magnet. You're kind of contending with the 138 as well as the 144. And then if you go out here to the 17th, we're getting stretched. There's no question that there's a little bit of bullishness here. You can see that the transition for the 17th, and this is the monthly. So, by the way, if we just turn all of these on and look, here's today, 37% of the gamma is coming out of the complex today, and then it jumps down to the 17th with 19%. So between today and the monthly, you're dealing with about 56% of the overall complex is shifting, right? With 37% of that money having to go somewhere today. So you're going to see a lot of noise in vol M. In fact, let's just go do that while everyone's here. Yeah, thanks, Len. I saw that. And let's see, my SPX levels. So my verticals are underwater right now. We'll see. We'll see how that manifests itself out. But they're nowhere near max loss. So because I got time value on them, so that part works out well. So let's run. I'm going to go down to charting. Let's do it in charting one for the lack of a better place to do it. And go $ vol M NVDA. And what this will do is this will tell us more or less what we're starting to see here. Okay, it's early yet. Oh yeah, we're just coming up on 10 o'clock, so it's hard to. We don't have this yet. Let me run a net stat. We don't start printing on vol M until after 10 o'clock. It needs a few points, and we need the book to clear. We don't want to align on the book. So I'm running netstat NVIDIA. We'll see what happens here. All right. So this, I chuckle because of this. So this is for today. This thing is really, really bullish, right? Now we're up at 143. Which, by the way, we know is a likely location of where that 144 is, where that short strike is. So we had two short strikes here, and they've been in contention with each other. So 143 we know is the COI for today. So if we take 143, let's refresh this just to see where we're at. I don't know what the price on NVIDIA is right this second. Let's take a look. NVIDIA is, survey said, 143.79. So we are now, this is kind of interesting. So we're above it. That's what this is telling us, 143.75. This is where COI is. So you've got a really, really powerful setup here. First of all, you're in the money on the 0 DTE with the COI below you. Everybody should realize what that means. So basically, you've got all this charm support underneath you. And we just looked at this. That 144 short, that's what that minus sign there is. You can see we're all call dominated, right? So this is really, really powerful, because this is going to be, you've got calls below, which are given a great amount of charm support, right? So you've got calls below, which are effectively, and you can see where the gamma distribution is, right? So you can look at the gamma distribution, you can see that most of it's green. It's all call dom. And so you can imagine that charm, because charm is going to exist in this window. That's the second order Greeks, more or less. The gamma distribution is the same as the charm distribution, is the same as the Vanna distribution, more or less. The mathematicians amongst us will complain that that's not true, but for most of us mere mortals, it's good enough. Why this is important now, COI is sitting right here, we're above it. This is just basically support. We've got nothing but support here. And so when you see this in the money call structure on the left-hand side, all directions are going to be up. Now, somewhat mitigated by this, right? This is going to be somewhat of a magnet. We talked about that yesterday, that we get this magnet effect when you're above or below. And right now we're driving towards this 144 as being a real key here. So, whoops, that's not what I wanted. So I think, you know, I was probably a little late getting out because of the you know, I just didn't see it at first, just how fast we were going to move up. But today's action in this, combined with just the overall strength, has pushed us up. And so for those long calls, you know, they really paid out here. The short strikes that we had at 141 worked against us. There's no question about that. Overall net, you know, no complaints here. So pretty happy with that overall trade. And for those who followed, I hope you were able to participate to the upside.